So you're sobering up and you want to know how you face the giant pile of problems that has built up while you've been drinking without feeling overwhelmed and triggered and going straight back to the bottle. We're going to go into that in this video. Hi, I am Kate. I'm going on 10 years sober. I'm the author of the Addiction and Alcoholism Recovery Skills for Women book series. This is book 1, this is book 2, and I also created something to go along with it that really makes those even more helpful than they already have been. They're being used in rehabs, by peer recovery support groups, therapists, etc. All the details will be in the description box below. In recent videos, I talked about taking that pile of problems, listing it out, and visualizing putting it all into some sort of container, and then closing that container up, and then putting it into storage to be dealt with later. And at some point, if you're focusing on your sobriety, going all in and doing your best to do the next right thing with what is in front of you at any given moment, you will start to feel stronger eventually. It's sometimes slower, sometimes quickly. You'll start to feel stronger and ready to look at that container, to visualize pulling it out, opening it up, taking out one problem to focus on, putting it aside, closing the container back up, and then visualizing it, putting it back into storage. Not to be forgotten about, but just so you aren't carrying everything around with you all of the time. And then you're going to go back to that problem that you took out, and you're going to hold that and you're going to focus on that one problem until you feel like you have a solid plan that you feel really good about, or it's completely resolved. If you've watched my past videos, especially my most recent ones about this topic, hopefully you have written down your list of problems that you want to deal with that are just overwhelming you, and you have that at hand. If not, you might want to pause this video. You don't have to, depending on what you're doing, but it might help move along so this is a bit more interactive. Again, it doesn't have to be, or you can come back to this video, but if you have that list of problems, essentially, this is how I have adapted Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is this. Maslow was a psychologist from like the 1940s, and he came up with this structure about basic human needs to succeed in life. The bottom is physiological needs, just basically that things to help us not die. The second one is things to help us not die in the long term. So like a place to live that, you won't get kicked out of, that's not just a detox or a rehab or a sober living environment. The next is your social needs. The next is esteem needs, like having a good career and feeling really good about yourself because of your accomplishments. And the next is self-actualization, which is where you take your esteem needs to the next level and you are going to be the best you can be. So we're going to organize in our problems, our list of problems, into this hierarchy. Not exactly this. I've adapted it for our specific situation, which is our alcoholism or addiction. I'm 10 years sober. I've been there. I get it. I get what it's like. I remember it so well. And so I'm going to bring up my iPad. Okay, so now this is the hierarchy. I'll just call this Maslow that I've adapted for getting sober and dealing with the problems that are in your container and what you pull out first. And this is, so the first level, so this top one, number 1, is actually the bottom red one. And then we worked up on the triangle. So now we're going to start at the top with number 1 and work down on this list. So basically it's don't die now. And then don't die tomorrow or the next day. So don't die now is we have food, we have a place to sleep, we are, breathing, and we're working on staying sober, and all that goes with going all in on our sobriety. Then keep on doing that. So number 2 is don't die tomorrow or the next day. So keep doing those things, figure that out for the near future. And then 3 is social needs. So that's when we're going to really start to think about our friendships and our family and what we might need to repair as far as that's concerned. 4 is esteem. So at that point, once this is much further down the line, but at that point, once we've got ourselves secure with a place to live, we're working on our relationships, repairing them, forming new sober ones that are really healthy for us. and moving on from old destructive ones, perhaps, then we're going to start to think about, okay, what do I want out of life? What does my career look like? And then beyond that, which I don't know if any of you are at this stage, perhaps, beyond that, you're going to start to think, okay, how can I catapult myself into the best possible existence that I can create in my life? And what can I do with my life? Now, I'm going to use myself as an example. Problem number one for me was my roommates wanted me out. So I'm not going to write that whole thing, actually. What I'm going to write is housing. And then I'm going to say that my job was on the line. 3, stay sober. So this is an example of a list of problems. 4, boyfriend. He's my husband now. We're both sober. But I'm just going to put boyfriend because he was also struggling. And so that was a problem, right? And all of this stuff went into my container. I'm going to stop there. I think that we kind of have a little bit of an idea. And then we're going to organize this. So we're going to say that housing, where does that go into? Well, first, it goes into these 2 categories, right? 1 and 2. And we're going to prioritize anything that falls into category 1 and 2. So you're going to take your list and you're going to match it up with each of these categories. And then you're going to prioritize it. Housing was 1 and 2. Job was 2. And so housing should come first. And it should be something that you resolve within hopefully the first month or so. And you can resolve it by going to rehab, detox first, maybe detox, rehab, and then a sober living environment. And that is that is a very standard, very practical, very doable way to satisfy housing and in category number 1. So maybe that's your first priority and you focus on that. And you only focus on that. You put everything else back into the container and back into storage. And then once that's done, you're in sober living, then you focus on the job because that went to category number 2. And then you focus on, and then for me, boyfriend, category number 3, he had to wait. I had to focus on these 2 things first. And that's how you categorize them. And you're going to have a list of maybe 30 things and you're going to put them all into the categories. And then you are going to prioritize taking out based on these things, this order of importance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A lot of people, especially in these relationships that are just tumultuous, they prioritize number 3 first. But what about not dying today and not dying tomorrow or the next day? And those things get kind of looked over and then you end up in a same cycle and pattern. So that's how you're going to prioritize the problems in your list and what order you're going to take them out of the suitcase. This is a very, very top level overview of it. I go into this in a lot of detail in this book. If you are interested in that, it's in chapter 6. So next, hang on, next I want to go over kind of a general framework of what you're going to do with each problem. How are you going to face that problem? I mean, obviously we didn't know how to face it before and we ended up just drinking and getting loaded over it, right? So what are we going to do when we pull it out? How do we handle it? I was going to put it in this video, but I'm going to make another video and that is going to be on the screen here. So definitely click and go watch that one next if you're interested in learning about that.